Welcome to homework.
All right, we've got a question here where we have the function of f in the graph given. We want to estimate the integral from 0 to 10 for the function of x using 5 subintervals, with part A being the right endpoints, part B being the left, and C being the midpoints. So here we know that we have the interval from 0 to 10, so we will be able to calculate our change in x as our larger value minus our smaller value divided by 2. And here our b and our a is a representation of the interval, by the way. So our b would be the larger end of the interval, which is 10, and then 0 is the smaller end of the interval divided by 2. So the change in x is equal to 5. Excuse me, sorry, I did that wrong. The bottom part here is the number of intervals, which is n, and the number of intervals we know would be 5, so that your change in x is 2. All right, now, when we calculate for when we calculate for that integral using the right endpoints, what we're essentially doing is we're writing out the Riemann sum, which is the change in x, which is 2, multiplied by the function of all of your subintervals from 0 to 10. And we know we have 5 subintervals, so you would have the function of x sub 1 plus all the way to the function of x sub 5. Okay, and so these answers in here are going to be when you have a 2, a 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, because we know that it's changing, the change of x occurs every 2, or our change of x is 2, and we have 5 subintervals. So basically what we do here is we say, well, what is a function of x sub 1, which we're going to say is 2. X sub 1 is 2. So what's the function of x when x is equal to 2? So you would see that when x is equal to 2, the function of x here is equal to negative 1. Okay, and the function of x sub 2, we know x sub 2 would be 4. So at 4, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you have also a negative 1. Actually, I'm sorry, no. This is 4 here. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, 4. So it's actually a 0. Okay, and then at 6, we have here negative 2. And then at 8, we have positive 2. And then at 10, we have a 3. Is that right? Is that 3 or is that 4? This right here is 4. Okay. All right, now let's go ahead and solve for this. So we have a negative 1 plus a negative 2, which is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1, plus 4 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. All right, now when we solve for parts B and C, once again, we're doing the same thing. We're using Riemann sum, but we're doing the left endpoints. And the left endpoints, all it does is it keeps the entire format, but instead you start off with an x sub 0. Okay, and your x sub 0 would be 2. You would write out your left sum to be equal to 2 times x sub 0, so it would be f of x sub 0 plus f of x sub 1 plus all the way to your f of x sub 5, or I'm sorry, 4, because we can only have a total of 5 intervals. All right, so you would say, well, what is the value at x sub 0? We know x sub 0 is 0. So what is the function of x when x is equal to 0? And at 0, we have here 3. So we would write out 2 multiplied by 0. And then x sub 1 is at 2, which we know is negative 1, negative 2, excuse me, negative 1. And then x sub 2 is going to be here, and that's 0. And then plus we have negative 2 again. And then finally at x sub 4, we have 2. Okay, and then when we add all these values up together, we have a negative 1 multiplied by 2. These cancel out, so you're left with a negative 2. This was supposed to be a 3, I'm sorry. All right, because at x is equal to 0, we have a 3 here. So it's really 3 minus 1, which is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. All right, and the way that you find part C for midpoints is you basically take the interval, the interval between your subintervals. Okay, so I guess to explain that further, you would take the value in between x sub 0 and x1, x sub 1. And you just keep doing that up until you get your 5 intervals. So let me write that out to make it clearer. So you have m equal to 2 multiplied by the average, or the midpoint, between your x sub 0 and your x sub 1. So you would say, well, what is the value between x sub 0 and x sub 2, x sub 1, which we know x sub 1 is 2, and x sub 0, this is your x sub 1, this is your x sub 0. So the middle value would then be at 1, and we can see that at 1, our function of x is 0. Okay, and then you would just keep doing that, so on and so forth. So you would choose the value here, and we know that there you have a negative 1. Okay, and then you go for your next value here. We know right here is the middle between x sub 2 and x sub 3, and that's also negative 1. You do that again here. You would say this value here is 0. Okay, and then the value here is 3. Okay, and then what you're left with is a 2 times a, all of this added together is 1, so it's just 2. All right, and those are your final answers for when you calculate for the integral of your function of x from 0 to 10 using your 5 subintervals, which was your, for part A, your right endpoints, for part B, your left endpoints, and for part C, your midpoints. All right, well, I hope that clarifies the question there. Thank you so much for watching.